All right, since the final numbers of the state budget surplus have been announced, we've seen a surplus of suggestions from you about how the state should spend it. Governor Little is looking at it like a big benefit, promising big tax rebates coming back. But the House Minority Leader is saying the nearly $1.4 billion overflow shouldn't be celebrated. Joe Paris spoke with Representative Ilana Rubel today about this and getting perspective on, well, I guess that take, the minority side of how this budget surplus looks.
It's just part of the conversation. There's a lot of different ways you could look at this surplus. And back on Friday, we talked about the perspective, the view from the governor's office, the Republican governor's office. And it's interesting, though, we're going to talk about the two sides of the coin here. Back on Friday, Governor Little's office shared with us news about the final budget numbers for the 2022 fiscal year. Idaho is just short of $1.4 billion in surplus. And we've seen your questions. What can Idaho do with that money? Well, talking through the surplus situation, State Budget Director Alex Adams tells me that Governor Little is pushing to follow the model of the last few years with the current budget outlook.
I think he's talking about things similar to that for next year. Governor, in talking to him about the surplus, he's already saying, yeah, we've cut taxes 2 straight years, let's go for 3. We've made record investments for education, let's go further. So there's certainly a lot of opportunities.
Now, Adams adds that this is good to have a surplus as financial experts warn of an economic downturn across America, and we'll see how that plays out soon, for better or for worse. But with a lot of things, as we've talked about here on the 208 over the last few years, very different perspectives depending on where you're looking at a situation from. So while many are celebrating the budget surplus, House Minority Leader, Democrat Representative Ilana Rubel, she argues that the surplus is actually a sign of coming up short. She makes the point that budgets are a statement of what we value. And with that said, she points to Idaho's bottom-of-the-pack funding of public education, and the message celebrating the surplus sends to Idaho educators.
We have over 900 teaching positions we can't fill in the state because we're paying on average $18,000 less a year than the neighboring states around us. This is nothing to be proud of, that we have money left in the bank because of our systemic, dramatic underpayment of our teaching professionals. And really at every level throughout our government, we've been severely undercompensating. We can hardly maintain professors at our institutions of higher learning because they're being dramatically underpaid compared to any other state. We need to get up to par before we even start throwing a word like surplus around. We should not be using the word surplus when teachers are making $18,000 a year less than their peers in other states.
Now, to be clear here, Governor Little has made investing in education a priority and indicated, as we spoke about a minute ago, he wants to push for more investments in the arena of education. But Representative Rubel shares a different perspective, which is really interesting. And Brian, it comes down to really how you look at things like budgeting and surplus numbers, and perspective is really a whole part of this as well. Now, budgets, again, they show what we're most invested in and what we're most interested in. And so it tells a really interesting story. For example, also the surplus dollars, they also tell us the story of the financial impacts of so many people moving to the state of Idaho. The state budget director, Alex Adams, telling us that a major driver of the surplus is the corporate taxes. And with many businesses moving into Idaho, it's interesting to see how this plays out.
All right, we will watch that. Thank you very much, Joe.